Hello everyone, welcome into my latest live broadcast. It's Sunday, the 16th of November, 2025. I am CareyHolzman, and today we're going to talk about how to get remote control of your computer without any software and without any subscriptions. Now, we've covered this a few times before with other products, but today on this public video, we're going to take a look at a KVM, a keyboard video mouse over IP, which is talking about being able to use it over a network versus a USB KVM, which would be one keyboard, mouse, and monitor that you could share between two or more computers instead of needing a keyboard, mouse, and monitor for each computer. The idea is that depending on what need you have, that you would use a local USB KVM for multiple computers controlled by one mouse, keyboard, and monitor, or a remote KVM, meaning you're going to have remote access, quite frankly. Most remote access requires software. That software requires Windows, so you can't get into a BIOS, you can't do anything until Windows loads. And that's fine for most problems as far as remote access goes. However, there are times when I want to update a BIOS or I want to get behind the OS for some reason. And what I'm going to show you today can do that. And these are relatively inexpensive. In fact, I can buy more than 6 of these units I'm going to show you today for less than the cost of 1 year of TeamViewer. And it's far more versatile, and it'll just last, until it breaks, I suppose. It'll last for years and years and years. You'll likely replace it long before it would ever fail on you, statistically. And we have talked about the Nano KVM, and we've talked about the GLINet Comet. Then there's the Nano KVM Pro and the Comet Pro, which we haven't received yet. That'll be out sometime next month. And then, of course, the Jet KVM, which kind of was the spark to all of this. And now there's a new one called the Luckfox Pico KVM. And that's what's in this generic white box. We're going to take a look at it, meaning we're going to unbox it for the very first time and make you aware of what to expect, what you're going to need to do in order to use it. And if you look online, there's very little information about this. I don't know why. So this will be a one-stop shop for getting you out of the box, set up, and running without needing any other resources. Now, the Jet KVM is back to shipping in the United States. That's a shrink-wrapped box that I received. We'll unbox that one, compare them with what you're getting for the money, and then, of course, show you how to set that one up out of the box. Here's a spoiler. This is pretty well user-friendly when it comes to everything you need ready to roll out of the package. This is a little bit more DIY, but once you have them both set up, at that point, you're good to go indefinitely. Again, no subscriptions, no other money coming out of your pocket to keep these working. And the software, the reason why you see this unit and this unit is their software is nearly identical, and I would challenge you to find the differences. Now, is one a better value than the other? I'm going to leave that to you, because while one does cost more, it also includes more. And one costs less, you have to do a little bit more work and spend money on some accessories that are cheap. But when it's all said and done, which one's the better value? I'm going to leave that up to you to decide. That's our goal for today. And we've got a few other KVMs coming in. As I mentioned, the Comet Pro is still on the line, or in the mail, I should say. It's in my lineup of things I want to do, but I can't review it until I have one in front of me. Now, neither of these devices has Wi-Fi. These are the original generation KVMs. When you see the word Pro after the KVM, like the Nano KVM Pro and the Comet Pro, those have Wi-Fi built in. They also have video loop outs, which, again, these aren't really for remote support. These are really for remote access, and these are two different things. You can get remote access support. Okay, that's like instant house call that I like to use all the time. Or you can have remote access to like a work computer or something where somebody else isn't going to be there trying to use the computer when you are. So whether or not you need a HDMI output as well as an input, that's going to be up to you, and do know there is a price difference for that. And we're not going to really get into that today. We're going to talk about what these are for. If it's not doing what you need it to do, trying to force these to make them do what you want them to do is the wrong way to go about it. If you like going through life the hard way, then go ahead and buy the wrong size tools. If you've got a metric tool set and you're trying to take off a standard bolt, and you're too stubborn or whatever reasoning or logic you have that you will not get the right tool, you're likely going to damage that bolt. You're going to strip it out. You might harm the wrench, and it's going to take you a lot longer to get the job done. It's sloppy. So what I'm suggesting for you is that if this isn't meeting all of your needs, if either one of these don't meet your needs, they do make others that might meet your needs, but they do cost more money. The more demanding you want to be, the more money you should expect to spend. And that's just a universal truth of the world. So I want to get that out right now. These are some of the lowest cost KVMs on the market. And if you need something fancy, you probably shouldn't be looking at low cost. With that out of the way, let me say thank you to our friends over at URCDKEYs, VIP-URCDKEYs. They're the folks that I use when I buy my Windows and Office license keys for my businesses and my business clients. And I want you to know that, you know, most businesses, if you ask them, where do you guys get your license keys? They won't tell you. No differently than if you ask the grocery store who supplies them with their bread or other groceries. A lot of times it's none of your business. It's just not, it's not discussed. It's a private industry information that you know, they don't necessarily want their competitors to know. And for all they know, you're just a competitor pretending to be a customer, trying to glean this information to be of a competitive advantage over your rival. So it's pretty standard in the industry, regardless of the industry, to kind of keep hush-hush on your sources. After all, if the customer could bypass you and go right to the source, what do they need you for? But that's where this channel comes in. This channel is an extension of my regular business. And since I don't do regular business with the worldwide viewers of this channel, because that would be basically impossible, there's no harm in me letting you know where I buy my product keys, how I source them, what I pay, and that you can also get them for the same price. Now, I'm under no obligation to do this. I just feel like if I was a viewer, that's something I'd want to know. So we've worked with this company now for a few years, and VIP-URCDKEYs offers legitimate, real license keys. They don't have you calling for activation or anything like that. And they back them up with full support for 6 months. I mean, you won't even get that from Microsoft, quite frankly. So not only that, they're a fraction of the manufacturer's suggested retail price. So I'm not here to twist your arm and tell you to buy it. I'm just telling you, if you need a Microsoft Windows or Office license key and you don't want to gamble with these cheap sellers online that might just screw you over and say, too bad, so sad, they might ghost you after the sale, you are welcome to do that. I'm not telling you not to. But if you just want to buy once, get it done, and if there's any problems, you have full support. You can go here to VIP-URCDKEYs. Use our coupon code if you want to save 25%. If you don't want to save the 25%, don't use the coupon code. Pay full price. It's still a really good deal. Essentially, what I'm trying to tell you is that this is not a hard sales pitch. This is advice from your friend, letting you know, here's how I do it. If you have a better way, please don't stop doing it your way. If I knew of a better way, I'd be telling you what it is, okay? So from my perspective and what I need in a business and what is expected to me from my customers, this company matches all of that at the lowest price I have found. And I've asked them to extend that to all of you, which they are not obligated to do. And that's what that 25% coupon code is for. It's just for you guys. And if you run into any issues at all, they have 6 months of support after the sale. And on top of that, if you still don't get any satisfaction, you reach out to me. And I can tell you, the number of times anybody's had to reach out to me, I can count on one hand. It's very rare. So if this company were burning my viewers any more than they were burning me, we wouldn't be using them anymore. But it doesn't mean companies don't make mistakes. Every company makes mistakes. The only question is, how difficult and how fast is it to get that mistake corrected? In some places, they'll take your money, especially the real cheap places, and you'll never hear from them again. And it doesn't matter if you have any problems, they're done. They've got your money, they're gone. So if you want to play that game and run that gamble, I'm not telling you not to. I can't afford that little game. I need a business transaction that's guaranteed. And I'm willing to stand behind it 100%. So if you do run into any dissatisfaction, you let us know. My email address right here is on the screen. You can reach us at any time. And for that matter, if you buy a KVM or anything we show on the channel, whether or not we endorse it, you want to share your experience with us. I don't know that there's a lot we can do to help, but we'd love to hear about your experiences in those other scenarios. And if we get a lot of feedback, positive or negative, that lets us know about how we want to pursue or not pursue any further follow-up videos on that particular item or subject matter. So you guys really do help guide this channel to what is of your interest. And if we're finding a lot of people are having a bad experience with a particular manufacturer that we showcase here, we're not going to showcase them anymore. I mean, we'll give them a chance to make it right, get an explanation as to why we're getting so many complaints. And if it doesn't get better, well, as Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank would say, they're dead to me. I don't want to do business with them. I don't want to talk about them. I don't even want to acknowledge their existence. That's not good for sustainable business. So in most businesses, you're going to want to make your customer happy. And failure to do so, especially if it's affecting a lot of customers, is probably going to limit that life of that company, and they probably won't stay in business much longer. So if that makes you feel any better, if you feel you've been wronged, unless it's just a mistake, in which case they should correct it, should be no problem. And we won't know if you don't tell us. And whether or not we can help you kind of depends on what the scenario is, but we love to hear from you, and that's how you reach us right there on the screen. A shout out to our friend Buster with an Amazon gift card in lieu of a super chat. Thank you so much, Buster, as always. And also an Amazon gift card from our friend Mark Gaines, also in lieu of a super chat. And why do people do that? Well, because YouTube takes 30% of any money. It's a membership, if it's a super chat, doesn't matter. YouTube's going to grab 30% of that. So if you send us $10 in super chat, we do appreciate it, but we're going to get $7, and we're going to get that in 6 to 8 weeks. If you send us an Amazon gift card of $10, we get $10. We get it within 10 minutes usually. And we're all spending the money on Amazon anyway. In fact, everything that's on this table all came from Amazon. So we're going to talk about KVMs, remote access, and there's been some confusion from a few viewers. And we're going to talk about that today as well. That's why getting your feedback and your emails is helpful. It helps guide the content to make sure that we remember to include common misunderstandings and hopefully prevent those misunderstandings, and then we can learn about new misunderstandings. So before we get started, let me just say hello to everybody joining us in the chat. I think I'm going to need my glasses for this. Let's see. Oh, we got a new supporter here. AJM Silverado just became a supporter. Welcome and thank you for supporting us here. We are not an advertiser-supported channel. We're a viewer-supported channel. Without your support, these videos just cease to exist. There's a lot of content no longer being made, and you may not realize it. But the good folks over at Tech Deals shut their channel down nearly 2 years ago. And while it's still there, it's just been a ghost. It's an abandoned building is what it is, a virtual building called a channel here on YouTube that is vacant and just disintegrating. There's only one reason, usually. The most common reason is because the financials don't work anymore. The sponsorships have kind of gone away, YouTube money's kind of gone away, and now we're driving more and more towards our viewers supporting us. And if the viewers don't think our content is worth supporting, then I don't feel so bad about not making it anymore, right? If I'm doing something that people just in general don't think has any value, why am I doing it? So you guys let me know the value of this content by supporting it. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody that comes in and joins us in our live interactive chat room. We are live right now, and we're not television. You might be watching us on our television, but we are not television. When in television do you get to talk to the host of the show? Well, it's live. Maybe you have to call a phone number or something and wait on hold forever. You just type your question in the chat room. You might have to type it a few times before I see it. But that interaction, not only with myself, but with other members, other viewers, creates friendships that last a lifetime. And this channel is as much about the community as it is about the content. And I would almost argue the community is more important than the content, in the sense that I would hope that the community would find a way to stay connected even if the channel went away, because real bonds have been formed. And all those people you see in green here in our chat room, these are all supporting members. Without them, you wouldn't see this video today. And everybody else, we're glad you're here. And all we ask is that you're a kind person. That's all. That's it. Age, ethnicity, religion, knowledge, don't care. Because there are jerks along every one of those examples. All we want is kindness. And as long as you're a kind person, we have room for more of you. Come on into the chat. Just all you have to do is pop in and say hello and watch the magic happen. Even if you're socially awkward or it feels weird, anybody can pop in and say hello. And then just watch what happens. All right. Let me just say hello myself to everyone joining us here. Mark Gaines, of course, Jose Lopez, Eddie Casanova, Scott, Mara, our channel administrator, hanging out in there as always. Andy saying hello. And Doman 2000, 3D Everything, Brian Weber, Tony Aindow, all saying hello in our chat room, along with Ben Laird from Scotland, Richard DeFries, and Buster tells us in Edinburgh, Scotland, it's 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Ooh, that's cold. It's about 3.8 degrees Celsius. Oh, that's starting to sound like winter over there. We're finally getting a little bit of cool down here in Phoenix, but it's still, I think today it's a little overcast. They were claiming there was going to be rain, but it spit a little bit. We didn't get much. There may be more coming, but hopefully we'll be in the 70s all this next week. I hope so, like 74, 75. That would be great. And if it could just stay that way forever, as if this city wasn't crowded enough. Imagine that. Let's see. Where was I? Mark Baggett joins us along with Gary Bickle, saying hello in our chat room with David Graham, Ahmed Shabir, joining us from Canada. Ron Barnish saying hello. Good to see you, Ron. Jonathan Fells says hello. Kcordius Technology saying hello. Mark Leibowitz from Chicago says hello. He says, hi from Chicago. Sunday is for 3 C's, chores, carry, and chat. Nice. Not sure I like to be lumped in with chores, but I'll take it. Let's see. Did I miss anyone? Dustin Fuller and Jim Kenny join us and say hello. Jimmy Gray and John Rogers saying hello. David Guthridge says hello. Paul Vircher joining us along with John Williams and David Herzog. Nicholas Barlow. Welcome in, guys. A nice size chat room for a Sunday. All right. So, jump over here. We're going to start today by talking about the Pico KVM from a company called Luckfox. I cannot find anything about this on YouTube except for things the seller and the manufacturer have made with AI, right? It's completely useless. They're just ads. I can't find any of your regular content creators that typically do KVMs even acknowledging such a thing exists. So what I'm showing you here today does not exist on YouTube outside of the manufacturer's AI generated stuff and the seller. So to avoid any confusion, I'm going to take the Jet KVM and we're going to move that away for right now. I'll just put it up here just for right now. And what we've got is a generic white box. No labeling on it. I've got a USB A to C cable and an HDMI cable and a micro SD memory card here. These are about $4 a piece. But I might be getting ahead of myself. So what is all this and how does it go together? I was looking around Amazon. Specifically, I will regularly type in IP KVM in Amazon search and see if anything new pops up. And I do that because, and I'll do this on Kickstarter too, because something could be listed. That's how rapidly technology moves forward. Something could be listed there that wasn't listed there the last time I looked. So I try to look at least once or twice, maybe 3 times a week, and usually the search pulls up nothing. But every once in a while, something like this happens where it pulls up something I've never heard anybody talk about. I don't know when it got released exactly, but it's pretty new. And of course, I want to be one of the first people to look at it. I don't want to be a follower. I want to be a leader. So when it came to the first time I looked at a KVM, I was very skeptical of it, especially it was a Kickstarter. And it was this unit, the Jet KVM. And I ordered it, and you had to wait and wait and wait. And finally, when I got it, I was like, wow, this blows my mind. This is real. And then I wanted to order some more, and then the tariffs kicked in, and then you couldn't get them anymore. So I'm like, okay, if I find one I like, I'm going to order like 5 or 6 of them because I can use them for clients or give them away to friends or even potentially sell them on eBay. So whatever it can take to keep me in business, right? So I'm looking at Amazon, and I type in IP KVM. And by the way, all these links I'm about to show you, they're all in the video description. Mara has put them all in there. So you can follow right along with me. I'm in the USA, so everything I'm showing you is based on USA prices and USA Amazon. I don't know what's available in your country. You'd have to tell me. So if I scroll down here in my OBS, I should have a window capture, and that should pull up Amazon. So up here you see I've typed in this search, Luckfox KVM. Luckfox is the name of the company. KVM, the actual name of it is a Pico KVM. We have Nano KVM, Pico KVM, Jet KVM, Comet KVM. Now, this is going to be 1920 by 1080. It's not 4K. It's not Wi-Fi. It's not one of the fancy ones. It's not a second gen. This is a first generation product. The case is all metal, and it has a touchscreen that just slides left and right. It doesn't really do anything. It's just for information purposes. You see it says HDMI in blue and USB is black. That's telling you an HDMI cable's been detected and a USB cable is not. It's just there for informational purposes along with the date, the time, and the day. The company's logo appears in the top left corner. That's your Luckfox. And other than that, there's no branding on the box. There's no branding anywhere. There's no documentation that comes with it. There's nothing that comes with this. You're on your own. Now, the original Jet KVM was, I believe, $69.99 on Kickstarter. They were going to sell it at $79.99. And then with tariffs and just inflation, I think now it's $89.99, if I'm not mistaken. And other than that, they're virtually the same, other than they look different, but their guts are kind of very similar. So if we look, also, they make a version of this that's just the circuit board, without the case, without the screen. And if you want to buy that, it's even cheaper. In fact, if I look under Luckfox KVM and search, you'll probably see another version of it listed here for $38 plus. You probably want some money for shipping. Yeah, about $3.50 for shipping. Now, you're not going to have a screen. You're not going to have any information. You're not being protected by the elements. But you know, is it worth it for the extra $30 to get the case and the screen? I think it is. The screen itself is worth more than that. So, but you know, this is more again of a project box. You might like that option. That's up to you. But I just want you to be aware of what your options are. Now, Luckfox themselves, they do have a website. This is important because this is where you're going to go. This is the WaveShare website, people that sell this directly. And you can see it's a little bit cheaper here, but you might have to pay for shipping. And there's more information about the unit if you want to learn more about it, features, etc. All the specifications. And this is all standard KVM stuff, right? And some of it's just set to different specs than others, but otherwise it's more or less the same as what we've been seeing. Our ports on the back, we've got a reset and a boot. This is primarily for the unit itself. A micro SD card if you want to expand memory to have like a virtual flash drive if you have a bunch of utilities or Windows system, Linux system images you want to boot from, you would add the memory card at additional cost on your own. You're going to have to plug it into Ethernet. It's not Wi-Fi. You're going to plug your HDMI, and this replaces your monitor. It's not in addition to. It replaces your computer monitor so that you can access this over the internet. If you have dual outputs on your motherboard, you could turn both outputs on and set it to duplication mode, which would effectively create a video loop out for you. This pinout is basically a serial port, a UART, and that's a little bit more complicated, and we're not going to even talk about it because I don't use them. Serial ports are some pretty old school stuff, but depending on what this is being used for, like a point of sale system at a restaurant, it could be something useful. And then the USB port here is going to be what provides power to this unit, to power the screen and to power the operating system that's on it. This is a tiny computer. I want you to think of it as a tiny little computer that has one job, and that is to get you connected online to another computer. So you will never connect to the remote computer. You're only connecting to this. So I want to be clear on that. This is what you connect to, and this is going to translate your keyboard mouse movements over to the remote PC and display the remote PC screen in your browser, so no software is required. It's no different than if you were sitting in front of the computer that you're remoting into. This kind of becomes an invisible middleman, but ultimately this is what's doing all the work, and this is what you're connecting to. That's true of all KVMs. So here we're talking about the different serial ports, right? The transmit and receive lines. Again, that gets a little bit more nerdy. We're not going to get into that because it's just not for everyday use. There's your dimensions, and then I don't know what a certificate of authorization means, but I guess it's real. I don't know. Now, they have what they call a wiki page, and this is now replacing documentation. And if we go over to that wiki page, this is where you're going to find all the instructions. This will not come with any documentation. So this is not meant to be something that an average person would buy without really understanding what you were buying. Now, the Jet KVM would be more in line for your novice who needs a little helping hand. But this isn't that much different. In fact, if you found this video and you can follow simple instructions, you won't need any more than this documentation. In fact, you probably won't need any of it. You'll just follow along with me. So let's do this. Let's come over here. When you order this for $69.99 at Amazon, or when I ordered it, I should say, it takes about 10 to 14 days to arrive. It does ship from China. There's no tariffs, there's no added fees, it just shows up, right? And what you're going to get is just a plain white box. What the hell is this? I don't recall. What did I order? I got a package here. It's not going to ship from Amazon. It's shipping from China. So you're probably going to have an unusual delivery service. Maybe a company you've never heard of before. Maybe not. I don't know. But it's not typically like UPS, FedEx, DHL. It's somebody else. And I don't care. Package shows up at my door. I open it up, figure out what is it, because there's nothing on here that indicates what it is. And in here, I've ordered 2 of them. Because if I'm going to wait 10 days to 2 weeks, I might as well just get a second one. And what's inside of these, right here, there's just 2 things in this box. The KVM and a little anti-static bag, and a 2-to-1 splitter for USB-C, which I don't use this, right? The thing I need, they don't give me. I mean, the heart of it is really what I need, but I'm never going to use that little splitter. And just for consistency, the other one will be exactly the same. This is what you're getting for $69.99. That's it, nothing more. That's all you get. Plain white box, no documentation, no other cables, nothing. All right, so by doing that, they can keep the price really low, save you a lot of money, but it also means that there's a little bit more legwork that you have to do to educate yourself, which is to your benefit. I've never once heard somebody say, wish I didn't know this information, like I wish I didn't have this education. You may never have needed this education, but you don't know if you're going to need it tomorrow. And if you have it and you don't need it, that's great. But if you do need it and you've learned it because of this, and now you're working on something similar, it's a lot easier for you to catch up. So, you know, to get a job done, you're not starting from square one again. So with that, I'm seeing movement out the side of my eye, and I guess the wind is blowing a little bit out there. Let's open this up, and I'm going to show you. This is the device, and we do have a little screen with some film protecting it during shipping. And the rest of this stuff, we don't use it. I don't use it. This is the device. Let me bring it up to the camera and show you close up. This is your 1.5-inch touchscreen, which again is just informational. There's no changes you can make here. Exactly as we showed you in the pictures. We're going to plug USB in. We're going to plug our monitor, basically the HDMI. This replaces our monitor. And we need to give this its own Ethernet connection. We also need to give the computer we're connecting to its own connection, whether it's Wi-Fi or Ethernet, doesn't matter. But in today's example, I'll be using wired connections here and on the PC. On the side, we've got a memory card reader right here. And this could be used to expand the storage on this to work as a flash drive for you. If you wanted to load ISO images like Ventoy would do, you can do that right here, boot from them, and even reinstall your operating system remotely if you have your images on here already. Or even if you don't, you can always upload your images to them. And then once you've got them remotely, you could do this all remotely. Reset and boot are primarily for this device itself, not to control another machine. However, there are other ways to do it. And then, of course, you've got some screws under here. If we wanted to take it apart and see how it's built, I don't know why you'd want to. There's nothing user serviceable inside. This runs off eMMC memory, so it's not upgradable in that sense. And it'll have about 4 gigs of free space on it. So if you don't buy the memory card, if the images or the files you want to put on there, like I like to use VLC, Uncle Carey's Windows 11 Optimizer, Crystal Disk Mark, Crystal Disk Info, CPUZ, it'll hold all that stuff super easy. But if I want Windows 11, that's like 8 gigs. It's not going to fit on here. I'm going to need to buy a memory card. Now, if you were to just go to buy this right now, it's no good to you without the rest of this. This is optional, but this is not. So if you want to know which cables am I buying, I'm going to show you. There are other options. However, let's get back over to Amazon. And again, links for these cables are all in the video description. Let's start first with the USB cable because this can be tricky. There are USB cables that are charging cables only, meaning they only have basically 2 wires inside of the sleeve. And you can't tell by looking at it how many wires are inside of that. So the way we can tell a charging cable from a data sync cable is it'll say in the description that it's a data sync cable. As far as I know, there's no such thing as a data sync cable that also won't do charging. But there are charging cables, a lot of them, and you can usually tell by their price, that won't transfer any data because they only have 2 wires inside of them or 3 wires. For data sync, you need a lot more cables. And because they're adding those cables, they also add the cables for power as well. But it doesn't work the other way around. And what I bought is a 1.5-foot cable. And since I've ordered multiples of these KVMs, I'm going to need multiple cables. So a 3-pack was $7.99 on Amazon. And these are USB-A on one side, USB-C on the other side, and they're 1.5 feet long. Obviously, you can have an option here from this manufacturer of length of cable and the thickness of the cable. I like the thinnest cables possible. That's my preference. HDMI cables, I do the same thing. I look for the ultra thin HDMI cables. You know, 1.5, 2 feet long is all good. These support 8K, so you know this is only a 1080 KVM, but you know if it upgrades in the future, my cables are still good. And these run $7 a piece, right? Quantity of 1. So when you're considering the price difference between KVMs, you got to calculate in, if you don't already have cables, you're going to need to buy 1 of each. That's approximately another $14, $15. In addition to the 70 you spent, we're now up to about 85. And then of course we're not done yet, because if you wanted to buy the memory cards, again, I have multiple units. Okay, so I'm not just going to buy one. You might just want to buy one. But this works out cheaper per unit, and I stick with a name brand manufacturer. And in this case, PNY has a 5-pack. They're 32 gigs each, and it's $20. So essentially these are $4 a piece. And they come with a, each one comes with an adapter. So if you want to adapt that to the larger SD card versus the micro SD card or transflash, or if you want to make it bigger, if you want to go to 64 gigs, you know, there's a 3-pack for $19. You want to go to 128 gigs, there's a 2-pack for $18. You can go all the way up to 2 terabytes if you want to spend about $200. And don't drop it in shag carpeting, because you will lose it. Now, for my purposes, 32 gigs is way more than I need. It's more than twice what I need. The utility flash drives that you see me use routinely here on the channel are 16 gigs, and I don't have those maxed out. So this gives me room to grow. It's a brand name, so I'm not buying just the cheapest thing. I would caution you against buying the cheapest thing unless you're buying the cheapest quality thing. There's a difference. So for me, this was the cheapest quality. The cheapest with quality, I guess is how I should say that. If you buy cheaper memory cards, they tend to corrupt as they sit. I can't explain why, but there's definitely a consistency issue with regards to data corruption on the cheaper drives that very rarely happens on the name brand drives. And I'd have to be a forensic engineer to be able to explain it to you. And for the couple of dollars difference you save, trust me, it's not worth it. So those are the actual items I have purchased, because I knew from my first go around with the Luckfox I was going to need cables. I was really surprised they gave me that splitter that I don't need, and didn't at least give me the USB cable or the HDMI. So be prepared for that, because I wasn't. Now, the way that they ship this, if we go to the documentation, you notice on the left side they make a bunch of other stuff. And what we're looking at is right here, the Luckfox Pico KVM, and then all of these sub-chapters are within that. And one of the things they tell you is that the Pico KVM is preloaded with a factory test image. It's not intended to be taken out of the box and used as is. It's meant to be taken out of the box and tested. That's it. In order to put it in a usable format, at least a more user-friendly and more useful format, you're going to want to download and update the image. And this is where you're going to get it, and these are the instructions. And one of the first things you're going to need to do is to download the driver assistant so it can recognize it when it's plugged in. You don't need to download this to use the unit. You only need to download this to update the unit. Once you do this, you'll never need that software again unless another update comes out. That driver is necessary for the update software to see the USB device. But other than that, you don't need any drivers or any software for this unit to use it. But you do need software and drivers to update it. Then you update it with what? With the image. All right, so we have the driver and we have the image. There's your Google Drive link to download that. But how do we get the image onto the unit? Well, that's what that piece of software that this driver is for. And that's the third piece here, although they've got it labeled as 4, which is the instructions on flashing the image. And there's multiple ways to do this. This is where it can get confusing for a novice, because this screen will keep explaining all these different ways. We're just going to use the first way, which is the very first steps here, using this piece of software called the SoC Toolkit Flashing Tool. So we have to download 3 different pieces of software. And then once we're done with it, we can uninstall the software, we can remove the drivers or leave the drivers, doesn't matter. And I don't know if this will ever get any other updates. I don't know what kind of support this is going to have, because this company, you know, they're new to me. They don't have much in the way of marketing. I don't know much about them. But I can tell you, with the updates in it, I can't imagine, you know, how they can improve it. Like it's working fantastic. It doesn't need anything so far as I can tell. And that's it. Once you've done these steps, you're golden. You start using this thing. You never have to update it again. You never have to pay any other software fees or subscriptions or download any other software. Once it's done, it's done. So I'm going to demonstrate this whole process to you right now live. So overall, this is the overall concept of what we're about to do. Now, in a perfect world, this would have the software pre-installed and ready to go, and it would include these two cables. That's what the Jet KVM does. So yes, the Jet KVM is going to cost more. It's not available on Amazon, but you can go to jetkvm.com and order it. I ordered this one from iCoolCore. It took 10 days to arrive. It does include both cables, and the software's ready to roll, although you still want to update that software. But updating the software, you just hit an update button. You don't go through this technical stuff. This has no update button. It will never offer you an update button. So you have to know enough to go to the site, look at the version, compare it to what you have. And that's why I say, once you do it, you're probably good for life. So just so you know, if you want a package that's more ready to eat, rip it out of the package, plug and play. You want the Jet KVM, you've got your cables, you've got your software, you have an update button. The software itself, when you're logging into these, they're virtually the same. I can't tell them apart except for a couple little details, which I'll show you later. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use this little mini PC. It's one of my favorites from our friends over at Minis Forum. And I've just got the power adapter plugged in and nothing else. I'm not going to plug in a keyboard or a mouse. Instead, this is going to be my keyboard and mouse. This is also going to be my monitor. So we're going to take the USB A to C cable here. See if we can come over to a close-up camera. And we'll plug that in right here. There's only one place it goes. You can't screw it up. Then we're going to plug this into any USB port. It could be USB 2. This isn't really fast USB. And just kind of unwind that a little bit. And then we've got our HDMI cable. Now you might want your unit further away or closer. That's how I'm determining I only want the 1.5 or 2 foot length of cable, so I don't have a bunch of excess cable that I could trip over or get tangled up in. Once again, you know, it's a cable. It doesn't come with any documentation. That doesn't even tell you who makes it. It's just an HDMI cable. It's a full-size HDMI. Now, the difference on the Jet KVM is it uses a mini HDMI to a full-size. That would go to the, the full-size one goes to the back of the computer. And the Jet KVM, for one reason or another, requires the mini. But don't worry, they include that in there. All right, so this is HDMI on both sides, exactly the same. So we'll plug it in there. And this is going to replace our monitor. So we've replaced our keyboard and our mouse, and we've replaced our monitor. Does that mean you still can't have a keyboard and mouse? No, you can still add another keyboard and mouse if you want to use it locally. Could we add another monitor? Well, I mean, we do have another monitor output right over here, this display port. We could turn dual monitors on in the operating system. So that is an option, but I need internet access on my mini PC. And I need internet access on this little tiny PC too. Remember, this is a small computer. It needs internet access. So finally, I'm going to plug a network cable in here or connect this to Wi-Fi. This doesn't have Wi-Fi, so I must plug a network cable into it. So for today's example, we're going to just use 2 Ethernet cables. There's one. And here's 2. That's all there is. All right, so before we update this, we want to make sure it works. So I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to turn it on. And you'll see the screen will get power from USB, and it'll light up. And now this little computer is booting now that this little computer is booting. Look how fast that booted. This little guy right here. It's sensing one cable's plugged in, and in a minute the other one lights up. We're good to go. So now how do we access this? We're all plugged in. This is turned on. All we have plugged in is power, network, HDMI to the box, and USB to the box. So what now? Well, it couldn't be any easier. If I come back over here to camera 1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us back over to Amazon just for a minute, just because that's where I'm sharing my window capture. And we're going to type up here PicoKVM.local. Now watch what happens. This website appears. But this isn't a website. This is that little tiny computer. And it's connected to the other little computer. And this is my desktop. You see how there's two mice? There's my mouse, the big one, and there's the one on the mini computer following me. Now, if I want to go full screen, I hit the full screen button and you wouldn't even know I was connected remotely. It's like you're there. And if I want to restart this computer, I can watch it just like I do on my local monitor. Remember, I'm looking at this through a browser without any software at all. We'll hit restart anyway. It's exactly the same as being in front of the computer, but you can do this just the way I've shown it from anywhere in the building. Now, if you want to access it from anywhere in the world, that takes an additional setup. So you have two different setups. One is for local access, which is what I'm doing, meaning I'm in the same building with the computer. And the other will be remote, sort of worldwide access. But you notice how all that just came up. And remember, if I come up here, you'll see a black X. Hit that. We're still in the browsing window. I can still visit other browsing tabs at the same time. It's really simple. The problem I have with this is if we go to settings and we're looking for an update, this should scare you a little bit that we have app version 001 and system 0.1.0. And when we hit check for updates, it's probably going to fail because this site doesn't seem to exist. So you're on your own. And when you do update, from my experience, the check for updates button goes away. I don't think the way that they fix this problem is simply by removing it. So how do we update this? Because now that we know it works, the next step before we go any further, before we try and configure this, especially for internet access, we want to make sure we have the latest secure software. And when we get into, well, okay, you've shown how you access it locally, how are we going to access it from a different location, like another state or from miles away? That's what zero tier and Tailscale are for. These are both free services, and we're not going to get into that today, but needless to say, if you type in Tailscale, how to use it, there's a ton of videos on YouTube and a ton of articles online. It's super easy. It's completely free. And think of it as a VPN tunnel that's yours. It's free. And again, no subscriptions and no money has to be spent. We can even shut this computer off. We can go down here and shut it off and enable the ability to wake it up over LAN, wake on LAN. So we could physically turn it on, which is really cool, assuming we have Tailscale, zero tier, or run on a local area network. When you look under settings, you're going to see this is almost identical in every way to the Jet KVM. The software looks identical. So little differences, but otherwise, if you've already familiarized yourself with Jet KVM, then you already know the Luckfox. So the first thing I want to do now is I want to update this. And this is where you got to be a little bit nerdy. But if you just follow my steps, I promise you it's very easy to do. So here's the way we're going to do it. Let's go back over to camera 1. And I'm still connected. You'll see, the screen's there. We can slide the screen for more information. Okay. It's just information. There's nothing you can change. I could do without the screen. I don't need it, but it's cool. The case is metal. It doesn't get as hot as other KVMs, so I like that too. And what we're going to do is we're going to follow the steps together. Online, I'm going to demonstrate or translate into actions what those words are. Because some people, they see those words and they're not interpreting them correctly. So between the words and my actions, it should be really simple to understand. So the first thing we do is we're going to go back over to our window capture. And I'm going to do it all on the remote PC. I'm going to update the remote computer via the remote computer. Think about that. So let me go full screen over here. Oh no, I don't have to do that. I can go over here. I go to full screen here. All right, so I have the full screen. Remember, we're on that little computer with my logo on it. And we're going to open up a browser. And we're going to just search for the Luckfox wiki. Right, first link that pops up is wiki.luckfox.com. You can just go there directly. And it's going to pull up the page I've already shown you. What we're looking for is the Luckfox Pico KVM, and we want to do the firmware update instructions. It says the first thing you want to do is to download this driver installer. Click here to download. It's pretty small download. Open that up, extract all, and extract it. It opens another folder called Driver Assistant. Open that folder. It says drive install.exe, or on your system it may just say drive install with this logo. Double click that. And it says, hey, we don't know what this is. It's a small time manufacturer. Microsoft doesn't know. It could be dangerous because most viruses come from unknown manufacturers, if you could imagine. And Microsoft hasn't reached an intelligence level to know the difference. So we know this is legit, and we're going to go ahead and tell it to run anyway. Yes, install the driver. It says, do you want to install it? Yes. Install driver, okay, great. Perfect. So with that, we just close this box. You don't get any sort of okay or anything. It's just install or uninstall. It's not the best written software in the world. And I'm going to cancel that. I must have clicked it twice. We're going to close everything out, and we're going to restart this computer. This is key. You have to restart after installing the driver update, or the driver installer rather. It's not an update. It's a driver required for the firmware software to identify this unit to program it. It's not built into Windows. As you can see, unlike other remote access software, you would normally not see the boot screen. You would normally have to wait till you get into Windows. But with something like this, we're literally the monitor being transmitted over the internet. Anything displayed on the monitor will appear on your browser window. With that driver installed, we're going to go back to the Luckfox wiki page where we were, which is the Pico KVM. Now, under firmware update, where were we? We had done the driver install. That's done. So where do we get the image? Right here, Luckfox Pico KVM image, Google Drive link. Click on that. It says firmware. Let's see what's in here. And we have a factory image. That's what's already on there. We don't want that. That's a test image. And then we have something here from October 13th and something here from November 7th. So I have to assume I want the November 7th. That's the most recent version. And let's download that. And you might just want to come back in here and check on this from time to time if there are updates. This is about a 352 meg download. So because of its size, Google can't scan that for viruses. We're not worried about it. And it's a .img file. It says, hey, this thing might be dangerous. Yeah, we know. We're going to keep it. We know it's not dangerous. They always err on the side of caution. If you don't know what you're doing, then you probably, if you're not expecting that to pop up, you probably want to discard it. But we are expecting it. We know what we're doing, and this is all legit. And it's not saying it isn't legit. It says I can't tell. Well, I can tell. I can tell you it's legit. So you can move forward with that safely. And then finally, now that we've got the image, we've got the driver installed, how do we get the image onto this little tiny Pico KVM unit? And that's going to be using a piece of software here called the SoC Toolkit. Click here to download it. Once again, it's going to download a relatively small file here. I'm going to click once on that. and extract all. Then extract it and another window opens. There's the extracted folder, and inside of that should be an executable file right here, SOC toolkit. Again, if your system shows .exe or not depends on if you've got known file extensions hidden. We double click. Once again, the same thing. We don't know what this is. Could be dangerous, might be fine. I know it's fine. Now, let me close all these back windows out because I don't want to confuse you with too much information. It says, under chip selection, choose the RV1106. So if I come down here, find the RV1106, it's right there. Click OK. And then we're definitely going to want USB on this. So those two changes. Then we go back to the instructions. What now? Well, holding down the boot button on the Pico KVM, plug in the USB cable to the back of the computer. Now, clearly, this is where I'm going to have to go back to camera 1, because the minute I unplug the USB cable, we're going to lose all connection to mouse, keyboard, and monitor. So just let me read ahead so we know what to look for. We're going to look for mask ROM 132 to appear. And in order for me to see that, I'm going to have another way to look at this computer, because I'm doing this from the remote computer. Once I disconnect USB, I'm going to lose video, so I'm going to temporarily connect it to the capture card, just to show you what's going to happen. So when we hold down the boot button, plug the USB cable in, the desktop should show this mask ROM 132 detected. If it does, then we're going to hit that's step 1. Step 2, you're going to search for the downloaded .img file, and then you're going to hit the download button, and then you're going to see all this stuff start to appear on the right side. When it's all done, at that point, you're finished. All those stuff you just downloaded, you can delete it all. And now when we reboot the Pico KVM, we're going to notice a different app version, a different image version, and some new features that weren't there before. And then it's ready for you to start using it indefinitely. I would recommend you check back from time to time to look for updates. As I mentioned, there appears to be no check for updates button. But on the other hand, if this never got updated again, it's not missing anything I need. I'm happy with it just the way it is. But that's me. You might feel differently. So that's pretty much where the instructions end. And then they're repeating different steps for different environments. Like, oh, what if I'm in Linux? Or what if I want to be on the development board? Blah, blah, blah. Well, you know, the standalone image without the software development kit. That gets way more technical than I'm comfortable with, and it's not the purview for me to place onto this channel, which I'm trying to make digestible for anybody that has interest. I can't make you interested, all right? But if you are interested, I can show you how it's easily done and just follow the steps. That's why I do this in real time, unscripted, live, and unedited, so you have an idea of how long this takes. And you can always pause the video wherever you're getting stuck or need more time. And then when you catch up, then you can play the video, you know, after it's live, obviously, and go at your own pace with nobody breathing down the back of your neck. And then, of course, if you run into any problems, you can always email us. But the first thing that I can tell you is if you run into any problems, you didn't follow the steps. Try it again, pay attention to the details, and you'll be successful. If you do things differently than I show it, do not expect to get the same results I show. So let me jump back over here. I'm going to go up here, back into our browser, and I'm going to go back over to camera 1. And at this point, we're ready to start flashing this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug the HDMI cable from this computer and the USB cable. I need an HDMI cable so we can look at the screen while I'm doing this, so I'm going to grab an HDMI cable off the streamer, just the way I usually do it. And since I have another unit in here in the box, I will do this to the second unit, so that way they're ready for me to use whenever I'm ready to use them. So this is now my HDMI 3, and let me just make sure that that's working. Yeah, so now we're back on the mini PC. And of course, it occurs to me just now that This one single keyboard and mouse I've been using to control both the streaming computer and this is all being done by this. With this out of the picture now, unplugged, I need a keyboard and mouse. So we'll just grab a keyboard and mouse here. And I don't have to do this on the remote computer. It's just that I wanted to show you on a clean install on a system that's never had it before. What would you do? What would it look like for you? I've already tested this on the streamer. So for me to do it again on the streamer is kind of cheating. So we're going to do it on a machine that's never been used before for this purpose. And then you have an exact replication of the process on a machine that's never had it before. If we leave the driver installed on here, then I don't have to reinstall it. If I leave the image and the flashing tool installed on here, then I can immediately go to the second unit and immediately skip all those other steps. Because once you've set it up the first time, if you choose to leave it on there, you can repeat it with multiple units. But if you only have one unit, I don't know why you need to keep the software. All right, does that make sense? So what it's telling us to do is it says we want to hold down the boot button, and at the same time, we're going to plug this into the USB port. Now, it doesn't matter what order we do this in. In other words, I can either, well, that's an HDMI port. The USB cable, if it's easier for you to do it the other way around, leave one end of the USB cable plugged in. Doesn't matter if it's this end or this end, whichever is easier. I think this will be easier for me to just have this in one hand, hold the boot button down, and plug this cable in. So in order for you to watch this whole process, you're going to need to see both me and the desktop. So let me turn the desktop back on and put myself in a corner. Just like that. And then let's go full screen over here for me. Okay. So ignore all of this for right now. We're just going to minimize everything here because we want to get to the flashing software. We want to pay attention right up here where it says USB. See how that's blank? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the boot button in, and I'm going to plug the USB cable in. The screen is going to stay black the whole time. And immediately, within seconds, you see how that just filled right there? So then we're going to select where our image is, which is under our downloads folder. It's a .img file. Which isn't there. Let's see. I do have it, right? Is it? Go back to our downloads, make sure it's there. Yeah. That's our image file, this .img file. So let me see if I'm missing a step here. Select the folder is downloads. Yeah, that's the folder. And then search path. I think it's going to be, let's see, we're going to want reset checked. And then firmware upgrade. I think it's firmware. There's our IMG file. You can click it twice or click it once and hit open. And then hit download. No checked items. Oh, I have to check the box up here. That's what I want to do. Now I hit download. And we have a little bit of an error here. So I've done something incorrectly. What if I hit upgrade? So apparently upgrade is the button I want. So even having gone through this prior to familiarize myself, I'm still not, you haven't memorized the process. Now, the screen remains black on the KVM. It looks like it's off, it's not powered, but clearly it's running right now. Just like a BIOS update, you want to leave this alone, do not interrupt it. This only takes a couple minutes. And once it's done, I'm going to disconnect the keyboard and the capture card, and we're going to go back to plugging it in and using it again. Effectively, we are done. This project is completed. You don't get any confirmation or dialogue other than just what it says here. And we can close this out. So with that, let me go back to let's go back to full screen on camera 1. And I'm going to remove my keyboard and mouse from here because, I mean, I could keep it there, but I don't think I need it anymore. And I do wish this arrived out of the box with this latest firmware on there, but it is what it is. And I'm going to unplug the capture card, and we're going to plug the KVM back in. And as soon as I plug this back in, it should boot up again. Oh, it had already booted up when I plugged USB in. And it looks pretty much the same here, but where it's going to be a little bit different is when we log into it. So if I come back over to, let's see, we'll go back to our window capture, and that was the state it was in when I disconnected it. So if I just hit the refresh button, it should reconnect. And now this is exactly like a Jet KVM, because remember, it never asked me for a password before. Now, I'm using this on a local area network that's secured. I don't want to have to enter a name and password every time when I'm in the same building. I only want to do this if I'm connecting to it remotely from another location. So for me, I'm choosing no password. And you're going to notice it's going to look a little bit different. This was the state of the machine as we left it. So I'm going to just go ahead and close everything out. And if we click on settings, where is it? Settings. Now we're in app 003 and system 0.1.2. So it's still a very early version. I will expect they're going to come out with updates, but you notice there's no check for updates anymore. That's gone. And again, the way that they've got it configured right now, I can't imagine any updates they're going to put in here that are particularly useful, other than this weird, you know, if you want your clock on the KVM to display the right time, it has to be typed in manually for your time zone, which I think is really weird. And UTC-8 is a time format I'm not familiar with. I usually use GMT-7. And it won't take GMT-7, so I have to translate. -7 and -8 would be what? -15? So I think I'm -15. I'm not sure. Let me just see what happens if I set that and hit set. And the clock says it's 12:08, so I've clearly got that wrong. Maybe it's -13. Let's try that and hit set. Now it says it's 10:08. So I got to go forward. So it's -17 to get to GMT-7 in UTC time. And now it shows it's 14:08, which is the current time here in Phoenix right now as we're live. That's pretty much the only changes I make. I am ready to rock and roll now. So up here, we can see the USBs connected. We can set up Tailscale or Zero Tier. Both are free services if you want to learn how to do that. If for some reason, let's say we want to get in the BIOS and you're not quite sure how to hit the key on time, watch this. I go to start and shut down, and I'll choose restart. But then I'm going to bring the virtual keyboard up on screen, and I'll look for the delete key right here. And so as soon as I see that start to reboot, I'll start tapping the virtual keyboard's delete key. Right now, just tap that a few times, and it should get us in the BIOS. I might have missed the opportunity. Or it might be another key to get into the BIOS on this unit, now that I thought about it. And you could still use the delete key on the keyboard too, but this is just if you're not sure, you know, am I sending that to my local PC? Am I sending that to my remote PC? You have this virtual keyboard. So if you wanted to do things like a print screen, how do you know which screen you're getting? Are you getting the print screen of the remote PC or the print screen of the local? So this way it ensures things like that. You know, you got Control-Alt-Delete for the same reason on the virtual keyboard. When I hit Control-Alt-Delete, it'll send it to the remote. Eventually, Control-Alt-Delete. Or apparently not. Not sure why that's not working, but it's supposed to. Now the unit itself has a little bit of memory on it. So you'll notice we have a virtual flash drive here with just under 4 megs of space, not much. 4 megs? I thought there was 4 gigs on there. And if you want to be able to utilize that space and add a memory card, you're going to go up here to virtual media and you're going to turn that on. And right now it's just telling you the image space that's there. You can unmount this, you can mount ISO images, you can do all of that. If we do, let's see what MTP is. MTP function's not been activated, so that may require a memory card. And we unmount, it'll say there's no mounted media. And then when we look back, you'll notice the D drive is gone. So you have all of these options up here to configure this the way you want. Now I can't simply copy text down here and hit Control-C, right, and say I want this. Take Control-C and then hit Control-V. Let's open up Notepad just to give you an example. I mean, it's noticing my key presses here. Notice down here it says which key I'm pressing, but it's not happening here. If this ever happens, refresh your screen. Sometimes it gets a little corrupted in the connection, especially if we've made any setup changes, like turning off the USB. And let's try that again. I'll go to Notepad. Still not coming up for me. There's oftentimes, and I haven't seen this happen with the Pico KVM, but I've seen this on the Nano KVMs lots of times, where we lose the keyboard and mouse control. Now the mouse is working fine, but for some reason, it's not letting me type in here. There's two things I can do. One, I can bring up the virtual keyboard and just type in Notepad. Right, and that should be appearing down there if I could see it. It's not. Well, that's fun. Let's go to Settings. We'll go to Keyboard. And it says, we show the press keys, which I showed you before. And you can change your keyboard layout to different, like British style, US style, etc. And under Mouse, we've got a mouse jiggler to keep the machine from going to sleep. You can hide the mouse cursor if you want to go crazy. There's all these different options you can have, and there should be a way to reset. Let me just see. Somewhere in here. This is our network settings. If you want to give this a different name other than Pico KVM. If you wanted to set a static IP address, the way you would do that is you would go into your router and you'd say, based on this MAC address, always assign this IP address to it. In other words, you wouldn't set your IP address here. You would leave it on DHCP, you would log into your router, and you'd say, take this MAC address, and anytime you see this on the connected to the router, then you tell it which IP address. That's how you assign, sorry, that's the gateway. This is how you would assign this number, or any number you want is based from your router, not on the device itself. Some people think they can't set a static IP on a Jet KVM or a like this Pico KVM, but it's because they're trying to do it backwards. So, depending on the way you look at that, you might agree or disagree which one's backwards, but it'd be nice if they did both, but it's not like it's not possible. And besides, as long as you know the host name, sticking with IP addresses is kind of an old school method that doesn't really make any sense, but to each their own. Everybody has their reasons. So I'm still trying to figure out if there is a reset on our keyboard and mouse. This is where you would set up tail scale or 0 tier. They do say these are experimental modes. All right, and you can learn more about HTTPS. All of that is in the documentation. USB expansion function. USB audio card or media transfer protocol. Interesting. Did that bring it back? Oh yeah, look at that. Now we've got 4 gigs free. That's what I was looking for. You can just copy files in here. That's the actual boot image. Don't delete that. But you can put your files in here if you want. That's under 4 gigs. And just like you have a flash drive of 4 gigs to utilize however you choose. And if that's not enough, you can add the memory card to expand it to yet another storage. It won't expand that drive. You'll have another drive, which will be the size of your media card. So then you'll have the 4 gig, that won't go away, and then you'll have the additional that you add. They're not combined into one. Let's see, I was going to go to Notepad because what I wanted to show you, it's not going to let me show you. And there is usually a reset to reset the keyboard and mouse, and I don't see it. So here's what I'm going to do. First thing I want to do before I try to diagnose anything is restart the mini computer. And if that does not resolve our keyboard and mouse, then I'm going to restart the KVM. Now, you don't have to be in front of the KVM to reset it. There is a reset button up here. There's a way to reboot it. And if we just want to do that now, it's under here somewhere. General, maybe? No. Video. If you're having trouble with your display not synchronizing correctly, that's what the ID is for. And there may be some monitors that they're aware of that require different resolutions in order to display properly, but usually the auto mode works fine. I don't see anything in here to reset. It wouldn't be an appearance. Keyboard macros, if there's things you're typing over and over again, you can set up macros. This is all of our network information. And then maybe under advanced? No. So I'm surprised. I was expecting there to be some kind of a reboot here, but maybe there isn't. Maybe that'll be another update. I didn't realize that the reboot option is either missing or I'm not looking in the right place for it. But before we go much further, I can see our mini PC has rebooted. I see the mouse chasing me. Let's go back down here and see if the keyboard works. Still not working. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to unplug the USB from the KVM. I could also hit the reset switch on the KVM. And I'm just going to reboot the KVM. Now, normally with KVMs, you can do that remotely because it wouldn't do you much good. But I am curious right now because this is one of those problems that will only happen during a live video. And I want to see if I can resolve that through just another reboot from the firmware update. It's going to take a minute to boot, and I can just hopefully wait for this to update and get us back to the desktop. Come back down here. How about now? Still nothing. Wow, I'm kind of... Oh, wait a minute. I've lost my mouse too now. It shows the USB is connected. It shows the connection is good. And okay, now it's working. I might just be a little bit too quick. Now it's working. Just a reboot. So what I wanted to show you is with copy and paste. If I have something here and I say copy this and I want to highlight this and hit Control-C so I can paste it somewhere else, it's not going to work here because we're not locally attached to it. We're connected over the internet. So instead I'd have to hit paste, and then what do I want to paste? Then I hit Control-V and confirm it, and it'll type it in for me. That's a little bit of a difference than, let's say, if you had Instant House Call, TeamViewer or something, you could do a copy and paste because of the Windows software. Remember, we're not dealing with any software. This is working like a website. So in that sense, it's going to work a little bit differently, but it's not that big of a deal. And the fact that I just had to reboot this to get this keyboard to type, that's very unusual. It's not normal. It's not common. And I'm surprised that there's no, so far as I can tell, there's no reboot function here, which I would think would be under settings. That there should be, you know, either under hardware, a reset or a restart. But it doesn't seem to be there. And given that this image we downloaded is from November 7th, which was just, what, a little over a week ago, not 10 days yet, it does look like they're actively improving the software. But when you look at this, it looks just like the Jet KVM software, except right up here it says Luckfox. And Jet KVM has a few different features, but the layout and the menus, all this stuff across the top, the full screen button, all of that is all still here. So the extensions are like physical extensions to the machine, like that UART that we were talking about, the serial console, which you're probably not going to use. These are your connection settings that we've already looked at. Just you can choose different languages, I guess just English or Chinese there. And then of course the settings I keep going into, we are not connected to Tailscale or Zero Tier because I'm only using this within the building, but you would set up one or the other. I would recommend Tailscale. It's really easy, it's free, it's GitHub, it's legit. I love going in full screen mode because you can just see everything as though you were right in front of the machine. You can hold down the escape button, that'll get you back down, or what I prefer to do to get out of full screen is move the mouse up to the middle, and then this little X shows up. Okay, so with that, that completes the overview and setup of the Pico KVM. Everything else you should be good to go and on your own. And if you decide to order either the Pico KVM or the Jet KVM, you're looking at either way about 10 to 14 days before you're going to receive it, but no additional fees or tariffs. It's just going to show up at your front door like anything else you would order, at least here in the United States. So I can tell you that from my own experience. Okay, so all in, when you add the price of the cables, the hassle of having to update this in this difficult way versus just hitting an update button, the lower price of the unit, however, when you add the price of the cables and the time to set it up, would the Jet KVM be a better deal? Well, let's take an unboxing look at the Jet KVM and see how it compares so you can decide for yourself. Before I start, I have not been paying attention to the chat room, so let me just see if I've been missing any questions here before I get too far ahead. I've missed a lot, so let me see what I can do to catch up. Hey, Buster says he purchases the hardback and paperback of Mara's new keto diabetic friendly cookbook. Thank you, Buster. She just got that self-published on Amazon. That's her second book she's got published now. She ended up going back to the first book and reformatting that book because it had formatting issues. And she took what she learned from book number 2 and redid book number 1. And now both Kindle and paperback and hardback versions are all available, and they're all formatted correctly, and everything looks great. So if you want to eat healthier, but you don't want to feel like you're eating diet food, you're going to want Marlina's cookbook. At least one of them. Paul O'Brien just renewed membership. He's a member now for 28 months. Thank you, Paul. Rick Lakes with a $10 super chat. Hey, Rick, good to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Charlie Purdy says hello. There's Dazzle555 joining us. Bikemen saying hello. Andy says that doesn't look real complicated. No, I mean, that's pretty much the worst of it, really. You know, making sure you've got the right cables and doing that firmware update, which, you know, should be an update button. You shouldn't have to go through all those steps. But, and again, you saw even myself, there was a box I had to check. I don't recall them saying that in the instructions, but, you know, I was very confident that I had it all set and then hitting the upgrade button instead of the firmware button, I guess. But that's why we do it live, to show you that, you know, when things don't happen the way they're supposed to, double check the steps and see if you're following them correctly. Check yourself before you wreck yourself, as they say. Dustin Fuller joins us and says hello. There's Mortaunt saying hello. Find me in Hawaii with a $1.99 super chat. Thank you, Find Me in Hawaii. Bill Sony said, this is cool, Carey. I think it's pretty cool. Andy says it's not bad, but not for the casual user. I don't know that I agree. It's really hard for me to determine what a casual user is, right? Because I think if you're just interested, if you simply have the interest, then this is something that you can do. If you're referring to a casual user as not being interested, then that applies true to everything else they're not interested in too. So we're not trying to force feed anybody, and we're not trying to convince anybody. We're just trying to raise awareness. And if they can think of a reason how that can be helpful in their life, whether they're a casual user or not, they are fully capable of doing it themselves without any subscriptions or any other money being spent. Once you set this up, it's not like TeamViewer where they're going to come after you for money every year. They're going to keep raising the rate. This locks you into your own remote access. You're in control. And if you're like, well, it's just a little more setup that I'm comfortable with, then that's where this one comes in. This one's a little bit more money, but it's a little bit more user-friendly to set up. They're both essentially the same under the hood. Mark Liebowitz said, I'm trying to imagine what a casual user of an IP KVM switch might look like. I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, that we have a real estate agent, just a regular person that starts or works as an agent for a real estate company. It could be their own company, I guess it doesn't matter. And they want to have remote access to their office when they're out showing a house. So they've got a laptop or a tablet, even their phone, anything that can open a website up. And they could buy this and hook it up to their home PC. Now, if their home PC doesn't have the extra cable for Ethernet, they can get a Wi-Fi version of KVM, such as the Nano KVM Pro or the Comet Pro, which will be out next month. So that's the second generation, if they need that. On the other hand, you could also buy a $10 network switch and just solve that problem real easy. Secondly, what if they want to be able to have a keyboard and mouse so they can use the computer at the office, but they also want this plugged in and available? Once again, the second generation KVMs have HDMI pass-through, or if your computer has 2 video outs. I'll tell you where things get a little hairy is if you've got 2 monitors that you're running at the same time and you're remoting into it from anything. It doesn't matter if it's TeamViewer or Instant House Call or something like this. How do you fit 2 full screens of resolution into your laptop screen or your tablet screen or your phone screen? And usually they enable you to say, well, show me monitor 1 or show me monitor 2, and you can switch between them at any time. If you've got a big 49-inch display with a 5,000 megapixel resolution, this has to squish that down to 1080. So in that case, you'd probably be better off using some software. Something like, even something free in a casual use case scenario, such as RustDesk, AnyDesk. There's a lot of free ones out there. UltraViewer, that's probably all they need. However, if they don't like the idea of having the software and they much prefer a browser-based solution, what's great about the browser-based solution is I don't have to load up Instant House Call. I don't have to load up TeamViewer. I don't have to put it on both sides, right? So if I'm borrowing somebody's computer, and I borrow your computer for a second, I can open their browser and I can go onto my computer without leaving traces of login behind and without installing any software intrusively on somebody else's machine. Or maybe I've got a new machine and I don't want to have to go through, I got to download it. I'm trying to get into my computer. I just realized I got a new computer. I haven't set it up with the remote. I wish I could just log into it via the browser. That's where this really shines. So depending on the need of the user, that setup, once it's done, you're good, you're golden. And then on top of that, you don't have any more money to spend with regards to keeping it up to date and keeping quote unquote subscribed. If you were working for an employer and that employer didn't want to spend outrageous amounts of money for, large remote access software, Cisco and all this other stuff that costs tens of thousands of dollars. Say it was a smaller office, like a lawyer's office, doctor's office, dentist office. Having people remote in from home on a solution like this, that you set it up once and you're good to go,
There's lots of scenarios because people use their computers, as you well know, Mark, for a variety of different things. It's pretty rare that, unless people are working for the same company, that they would use their computer in the same way. So what we're trying to do is raise awareness that this is a thing, it's affordable, and you can do it yourself. I can't tell you whether or not you need it, have any use for it, but you may never thought about it before because you didn't know it existed. So that's not my decision to make. All I'm here to do is provide information. What each person decides to do, dismiss it, cherish it, value it, embrace it, throw it in the trash. Once it's out of my hands and I put it out to the universe, it's up to each and every one of you. It's not for you to decide for anybody else, nor is it my decision. So I wouldn't dismiss the fact that there are home users out there who would benefit from this if they knew it existed, and that's why I'm making the video. And if those people don't have any use for it yet, or they haven't come across this video yet, by leaving the video up, people could stumble on it 3-4 years from now, because that concept will still be alive. Even if they don't make this anymore, they'll have another version, something similar. It'll probably be more powerful and cheaper. You know what I mean? The way technology moves. So the video still has more of an evergreen purpose than just being of the moment today. Your needs change as a user very frequently. What people use their computers for today is very different. We never used our computers for internet access in the 1980s. Right? For example, so our use case of why we use the computer and how we use the computer, it does change. I don't know if I see any other questions here. Ken, find me in Hawaii with that $1.99 super chat. I don't know if I shouted that out before, but if not, thank you so much, Ken. Okay. So is this the cheaper unit? Is it less expensive? You know, when we compare these two, they're so similar, but you tell me if you think they're similar. Yeah, they look a little different on the outside. They're both metal casings. They're both 1.5-inch touchscreens. Both touchscreens only show information, and the software is almost identical in every way. This is $20 more, but it has an update button, so you don't have to go through all those other steps, and the cables are included. Let's open it up, take a look. Once again, you're looking at brand new products live on camera without edits, so I have no way to pre-prep this and to predict what's going to happen, but that's how well these have evolved, that I can do this with confidence under the assumption it's all going to go smooth like butter. And it mostly did. It mostly did here, but sometimes you still run into some problems. So in the box, we've got, first of all, packaging with labeling on it, unlike a generic white box with nothing in it. The unit itself, a slightly different design, pretty heavy. It's all metal. We have a little bit of film protecting that screen, and it kind of goes around the screen. Oh, it goes around the whole thing. So we'll get that film off of there. Oh, maybe there's no film on the screen. Branded. This is not branded. This is just a black box. The only thing that has any branding, it's on the screen. This actually says every direction I turn it with the Jet KVM, and just a slightly different shape. All right. Instead of that little pinout that this has, right? This one here has that little pinout I said for the serial ports. They're using instead this, it's like an RJ11 jack or something there. So we're not going to use that. We just want Ethernet, USB Type-C, and this is going to be a mini HDMI port. port. That's it. So same 3 cables. This one will be 3 cables too. Neither are Wi-Fi. Going back to the box, what Jet KVM includes, if I can get this out, is this little box of accessories, and that's going to be the cables. Also, Jet KVM gives you a QR code to scan if you want directions, and they give you a little booklet of directions, all of which is not included on this unit here. All right, so if that has value to you, it'll help explain the price difference. And in this box, we've got, once again, a USB Type-C splitter, which I will not use. We've got a mini HDMI to full-size HDMI cable. So the mini has to plug in to the Jet KVM, right, like so. And then this is just standard HDMI to go to the back of your computer. This is our USB Type-C here. And you can see they've already given us basically 1.5 foot long cables. They're pretty thin cables, so they're very flexible. The thicker the cable is, it's more robust, but it's also more likely to snag and be difficult to get it straight. So USB-C side is going to go here. And we're just going to grab this Ethernet port cable. We're going to unplug this unit entirely, and we'll set it aside. Now, the RJ11 port is too small. You can't get this wrong. This only fits on this port here. And that's all we need. Now at this point, when I plug this Jet KVM in, I'm going to go to HDMI back here, just as we did on the other unit. And we're going to go to USB, just as we did on the other unit. And you'll see that screen light up here in just a second. And it's going to boot up for the very first time. Now the rest of this stuff, I can just put away. Throw that stuff away, I don't need it. Get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of all this junk. Let's get it out of here. Okay, so now we're using this. Now I don't know, like the Pico KVM, I like that it's already named Pico KVM. So I can just open the browser and go to it. This, on the other hand, I don't know what they've named it. So instead I'm going to look at the IP address on the screen and I'm going to type that into my browser. So if we come back over here to camera 1 for a second, and then let's open up my window capture. Yeah, we'll bring up the window capture. Now you'll see we're disconnected from the Pico KVM. So instead, I'm going to just, in a new browser tab, or just in this browser tab, I'll type in the IP address that appears on the screen. So we've got 192.168.68.76 and hit enter, and that should connect us. Again, not over the internet, but over our local network. It says, welcome to Jet KVM. It sees we're accessing this for the very first time. Set up your Jet KVM is the only option you have. Pretty straightforward, right? A little more user-friendly. Doesn't this look familiar? Once again, I love this option that I can log in without a password. This is not offered by anybody else, such as Nano KVM doesn't do it, and Comet KVM doesn't do this. They're the only ones that do this, and I appreciate that for using this over a secured local area network. Hit continue, and it is going to try and get a signal. If it doesn't get the signal, we can hit refresh and see if it'll reload. So we're still not getting a signal for some reason. Let's see. Let me make sure my cables are plugged in all the way. I have a bad habit of being too kind. Yeah, my cable wasn't plugged in all the way. What a shock. And that was the mini cable on the back of the KVM. I had a little bit of it sticking out. If you go back and rewatch that, you'll probably notice it. I didn't notice it. Now here we're connected, and the first thing I want to do is I want to go to settings and I want to check for updates. You see we're on app 039 and system 0.24. Hit check for updates, and yes, there is an update. Now, if the Pico KVM would do this, that would be great, because this isn't just giving us the app, it's also going to give us a whole system update without having to go through all the back way of doing things, the more technical way. So you are getting a little bit easier of a user interface. Also, Jet KVM has their own cloud service. So instead of setting up Tailscale or Zero Tier, you can actually set up your account with Jet KVM if you want to. You don't have to. And that makes it real easy to log into Jet KVM from any internet connected device. If it can open a browser, then you can connect to your computer remotely. If I want to connect to Studio C, right now I can just go to app.jetkvm.com and sign into my account. And if I've signed into that account before on the same computer, it remembers me, just like email would remember you. It doesn't make you sign in every time. And then all I have to do is click which of my Jet KVMs I want to log into, and I'm in. That's it. And it looks like Mara got her new cookbook in. How's it look?
Looks great.
If you flip through the pages and make sure all the formatting looks right.
It looks perfect.
So right now, we'll get back to that in a minute. Right now we're rebooting the Jet KVM, and this is the first thing you want to do when you get it. And you can see that's just a lot faster and it's a lot more user-friendly than the Pico. It's also $20 more, but then it also includes the cables. But on the other hand, it's a mini HDMI to full size, which again, if you wanted a different cable, you can buy those on Amazon. They're just not as much variety of just standard HDMI to HDMI. So whether you see that as a pro or a con, it is a difference. Now, once this reboots, and remember, this is a big system update because it's not just the app, it's the entire Linux system getting updated. This is going to be a bit of a longer reboot process than normal, and that's what's to be expected, and this doesn't happen very often. Now, there is an update in background option here, but I want to leave it on the screen to get an idea of how long this takes. Also, the screen is black during this. Oh, no, it's not black. I take it. The screen is not telling us anything other than what it's already been saying. Nothing on the screen indicates it's busy working, but when it's doing this, you don't want to interrupt the unit. Now, eventually this should go away. However, I have seen instances where the browser doesn't refresh properly and it just sits here indefinitely. So one way you can tell is just hit the refresh button and see if it still says it's updating. And since we were on the check for updates button prior, it's obviously finished and rebooted the KVM, and it just didn't refresh the screen. Now our system's up to date. We're on app version 0.4.8 and system version 0.2.5. We've got auto update checked. And you see here this reboot device. This is what I was looking for on the Pico KVM. So the Pico KVM is missing these two features, the auto update and reboot device. It's pretty rare that I ever have to reboot it. And again, if you're deploying this somewhere miles away or in another state, you're going to have to rely on somebody there to do it for you on the Pico, where you can do it yourself with the Jet. These are all 1080. Neither one of them are Wi-Fi. I can't emphasize that enough. The software is nearly identical in every way. I don't know if there's a time zone button here. I think the Jet KVM, does it even display the time? Let me scroll through the screen. The Jet KVM is just displaying my IP address and whether or not USB and HDMI are connected. So this idea of setting the time doesn't seem to be in here like it is on the Pico. So cloud provider would be Jet KVM Cloud, or you can do your own custom. And that could be such as Zero Tier or Tailscale, for example. I believe you can do that. Setting it up with HTTPS is still experimental if you wanted to do it that way. Play around with it. If I wanted to, start requiring a password, if I change my mind, that's where I set that. Where was I? Then under video, it's all the same settings. The EDID, which would be for setting different resolutions for screens, for video outputs, really. Whether or not we want to turn the display of the Jet KVM off. We don't necessarily need it displaying our IP address 24/7 and potentially burning into the screen. So having it turn off after 30 minutes is just affecting the KVM screen, which if we're connected remotely, we can't see it anyway. So again, that's your choice, or you can dim it or adjust the brightness of it. And then of course, as we scroll down with access, that's where I was before with regards to, I like to use Jet KVM Cloud. I think it's fantastic. The way Jet KVM Cloud works is if I want to connect to Studio A on any computer, I go to app.jetkvm.com and then I log in with my account, which has already remembered me from my last login, and it's going to show me every Jet KVM I have right now and if it's online or not. So I could have dozens of these things. If I say I want to connect to Studio A right here, then Studio A is going to connect this quickly. If the video stream seems like it's sitting for a while, hit the enter key because your screen might have gone to sleep. And now that we're on Studio A, here we're on the mini PC over here. We can connect to multiples all at the same time, unlike the remote software services that will charge you for how many you want to connect to at the same time. 10, 20, 30, depending on how many, the price goes up. With these, the price doesn't go up. You just need one remote KVM for each device you want to control. You pay for it once. There's appearance settings here, keyboard and macros. The network information, once again, there's no way to set a static IP here. You would use your MAC address and you would simply put that into your router if you wanted to have your router reserve an IP address for this. If I want to find this on the network, then I want to turn something on called MDNS. And as far as I'm concerned, right now it's not active. So I'm going to type in jetkvm.local. That way I don't have to look at the screen. If this is remote somewhere, like let's say I'm upstairs and this is downstairs and I want to connect to the computer from upstairs and I don't know its IP, I don't want to have to walk down the stairs and just read the screen. Instead, I can search for it by name. Just like Pico KVM came that way out of the box, Jet KVM does not, because you can't have multiple units with the same name. So if you had multiple Pico KVMs on at the same time on the same network and they were all named the same, how would it know which one you want to talk to? But I know I'm only going to use one at a time. So for me to give them all the same name, I don't have to look up what each name is. In doing so, if I were to close this out and just open up a new browser and type in jetkvm.local, now I don't have to go by IP address ever again. What do I care if it's static IP or DHCP? Just type in the name, it figures it out for you, and you never have to deal with that nonsense. These are sometimes people working in an old school method that are not embracing modern day technology. Maybe you had problems with DHCP in the past, but it has evolved. No reason not to use it. But if you want to be stubborn or you have some old archaic rules that you must insist on following, then you would use your router to assign your IP address to the MAC address. You wouldn't do that on the device itself. But some people think you can't set the IP address manually because that option isn't here. As if there was only one possible way. Well, that's your one way to do it. I kind of lose a little faith in people when they think I have to do something the exact same way, because now they're not thinking. What they're doing is they're ritualizing. And I am not a fan of rituals. If you're doing something for a thoughtful purpose that makes sense, I'm behind you 100%. But if you're doing things because that's the way you've always done it, I can't get behind that. But it doesn't mean I'm telling you not to. I'm just going to shake my head and say, you'll figure it out. Some people just have to learn their own way. So we do have some advanced settings here, which I'm not too interested in. And overall, you'll see this is mostly the same as what we were looking at before. They're nearly identical. Up here it says Jet KVM instead of Pico KVM. But if you look at the Comet KVM or you look at the Nano KVM, they don't look anything at all like this. They're completely different. If you wanted to buy a Jet KVM, you'd go to Jet KVM instead of .local, or remember, app.jetkvm.com gives me access to the Jet KVM cloud. jetkvm.local would give me access to the local remote, and jetkvm.com takes me to the Jet KVM website. And if you hit buy today, you can see it's available for sale again in the United States and in many countries through 2 sellers. So we go to Jet KVM, and we have it from iCool Core and from WizDippy. I hit iCool Core, $89.99 is the price. And then you could pay with PayPal. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. Now they do sell some additional items, but we're not focused on that today. And with that, let me get back over to the chat and see if you guys have any questions for me, because we're just about at the 2-hour mark. And unbelievably, I have finished under time. I thought I'd like to compare these 2 units brand new out of the box, including setup, explanation, documentation, demonstration, and do them both in 2 hours. I've done it for the first time in a long time. I can't remember the last time that's happened. Let's see. Out of curiosity, and maybe Mara can put a poll up there for us. Would you rather pay $90 for the Jet KVM, or would you rather pay $70 for the Pico KVM? They're nearly identical in every way. They are metal. There's not plastic housing. They're both like a 1.5-inch touchscreen on there. Same number of cables, no Wi-Fi, no video loop out, no 4K. Again, the 2nd generation of KVMs that cost more money can do all that stuff. And they're still developing them. They're not perfect yet. They're pretty good, but these have had a year to polish. So they're a little more reliable, a little more consistent, and give the 2nd generation another 8 months or so, and they should be at this level. But they're very usable depending on your tolerance and what you're expecting for the money. But you will spend twice as much for the ones that have Wi-Fi and video loop out when you include shipping and sales tax. They're about the cost of 2 of these, darn near. Hey, Mara? She might be working on it right now. I didn't want to yell in the microphone. I was yelling upstairs to see if Mara was setting up a poll. I'm curious. Given a choice, $70, $90. No cables? Cables. No auto update? Auto update. No cloud service? Cloud service. Which one would you rather have? If you were going to buy one, which one would you buy? Our friend Buster saying good night. Have a good night, Buster. Thanks for hanging out. And thank you for all your friendship and support. Of course, of course. Andy says for $15 more, give me the Jet. I'm kind of with you on that. Kind of with you there. On the other hand, I've been setting up some computers remotely. Like last night, I set this one up to do a bunch of updates that were missing because it's been sitting on a shelf for a while. And more, I'm grabbing the Pico now versus the Nano that I was grabbing, because the Nano's not quite as snappy, not quite as fast with the mouse. And I don't know if it's just psychological and I'm just wanting to familiarize myself by using it, but I keep grabbing this one over and over and over again. And I've used the Jet KVM enough, right? So lately, the last few days, I've been grabbing this and using, well, I have another one, not this one. We obviously unboxed it. But I have one sitting over there that's got the cables already plugged in. All I have to do is plug in USB, HDMI, power, Ethernet. I go upstairs, I start doing my updates, and it's fast. I also like that I don't have to log into it every damn time. Every single time I reboot the KVM, the Nano KVM requires that login, and I am requesting the people at Nano KVM, give us the option to turn the password off. Well, that's not safe. Well, that's my decision. It is in fact safe when you consider it's on a local area network that's secured. Is that just not a thing in your head that people don't, it's not possible to have a local area network? don't make that decision for me. Your competitors don't. So add it. If somebody doesn't want to use it, fine. But to force us to have to enter a password when we don't need to, when we don't want to, shouldn't be your decision. It should be my decision, and it would add value to your product. But maybe you don't want to add value to your product. Maybe you don't want to sell these at all. I don't know. I'm assuming you'd want the product to be more useful to customers and a bigger variety of customers, not just to a certain niche group that's going to put a ceiling on how many you're going to sell. Is it really that much code? I'm asking you to write. It's a pretty simple thing. And if you're not sure how to do it, just reverse engineer your competitors. It's really easy stuff here. I can do it for them if they want. When I get that pushback from SciPede, it really upsets me. Like, all I want to hear you say is thank you for the suggestion and we'll look into it. You don't have to tell me anything other than that. And if you decide to do it or you don't decide to do it, well, we both win if you decide to do it, along with many other people who would appreciate that. And we both lose if you decide not to, because that means your competitors now have more value to me and I'm not alone. These can work either way. Yours only works one way. Andy says his Nano KVM mouse is faster than either of the tunes shown today. Well, you know, the Nano KVM Pro, I think, is what you're talking about, which is a higher end processor. What about video loop out? So for video loop out, you're going to want the Jet KVM Pro. Sorry, the Comet KVM Pro. There's no such thing as a Jet KVM Pro yet. Not sure they're even working on one. I hope they are. But there's only 2 units that have video loop out right now. And that's the Comet KVM Pro, which is not available. It's not shipping yet until another week or 2. Sometime in December we should get it. And it will be available on Amazon by probably sometime in January. And then the unit, the Nano KVM Pro, which, you know, we've been doing endless updates on. They're both very early in development. And if you want that video loop out, I would suggest wait another 6 months at least before purchasing a unit, so that those pros have more availability. Like, I can't even figure out how to get a Nano KVM Pro anymore. I think they've taken it down. Well, they're developing it more, but I'm not sure. They do offer to sell them on Amazon, but when you try and check out, it says it doesn't ship. Doesn't matter what United State I put in there, it says doesn't ship, doesn't ship, doesn't ship to your location. Well, what's the point of listing it if you're not going to ship it? So I don't know what's happening over there, and SciPede took their Amazon listing down. So I think they're retooling some things. I don't think it's gone forever. I think they just decided it's still a little too early to be offering this to the general public. I assume, because they're not saying, that that's what's happening. But give it 6 months, and yeah, we should be much better off. Gerald Cochran said those are a nice addition to the toolbox, especially to us that are used to IPMI. Oh, for sure, yeah. Delman 2000 says, I use a lot of software remote control on my local area network that is secured, and indeed, often I just want no password. Because you're on a secured local area network, who are you password protecting it from? Somebody in your house? Somebody in your building? Get them out of your building if they're untrustworthy. What are they doing in there? Also, it's not exactly common knowledge to even know how to access it to begin with. All right. Looking at the results of the poll, what do we have? 84% of you that have voted, I don't see how many votes we have, choose the Jet KVM at $90. 16% of you would choose the Luckfox Pico KVM for $70. There's been 19 votes. So out of those 19, about 18 of you would prefer the Jet KVM. Andy says every morning he's checking for updates on his Nano KVM Pro because they're coming out that frequently. Right now they're coming out about once a week, which is great. but it just tells you how much work they've got ahead of them. Whereas these, they're not going to get updated near as often because they've already had a year's worth of updates applied at this point. So they're still going to get updates, but nowhere near as frequently. Okay, I think that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Now, if you have any other comments or questions or items for discussion, we're going to open the session up for any and all questions that I could possibly answer or that perhaps other people here in the chat might know answers to. And depending on if I get any responses to this or not in the next couple minutes, that will determine if the show goes on any longer. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today and sharing this experience with me. I also, again, I can't reiterate, I don't know why no other content creators are covering the Pico KVM. If it wasn't for me making this video, you probably wouldn't even know this exists. I appreciate the opportunity to make content other people aren't making, but here's hoping other people that have already reviewed other IP KVMs will make some time to review the Luckfox. Maybe the difference is people that reviewed these got paid to do it, and I'm not a paid reviewer. So I had to go and find this and pay for it. And thankfully, we're able to do that with our memberships and the contributions of our audience so that we have the funds that we can afford to do this kind of project, including buying the memory cards. And you can see it wasn't all that much money. And in fact, at the end of the day, I'm probably going to have about 5 or 6 of these, I think 5 of them. And then I'll have like 5 or 6 of these too. Because in my line of work, there's often occasions where, just like a flash drive, somebody needs something temporarily. Say, here, let me give you one of my spare flash drives. And it's like loaning somebody a pen or a lighter. Maybe they're going to give it back, and maybe they aren't. So when I'm giving away something to somebody, and like, here, this will get you through, I have extras. So I'm not going to be calling you going, hey, can I get that back? Can I get that back? The next time I see you, if you're not using it anymore, can I have it back? If you say, oh, I lost it, I loaned it to somebody else, whatever, it's fine. Granted, it's a little expensive, you know, for about $100 to be loaning it out. But on the other hand, what are friends for? You know, and if that's a service I can provide my customers, if they need a temporary remote solution and they like it, then they can pay me for it. If they don't like it, I'll take it back. Either way. That's why it's good for me in my line of work to have spares and have them all ready to go. So all I have to do is grab the box and go. So these will, the other unit in here I'm going to update, and I have another Jet KVM that also will plug in and update it. I'll also set the MDNS name to Jet KVM on the other one, .local. And that way, no matter which one I grab, it won't matter. They're all the same and they're all updated and they're all ready to go. And that's the way I roll. That's how it's going to be. And then if I get extras that are brand new in a box and they sit on a shelf for a while, I can always sell them on eBay. You know, even 2 years from now, there's going to be a demand for them indefinitely. And believe me, at the right price, people will buy just about anything. And they're small and easy to ship. Unlike these big tower computers I'm having trouble getting rid of because they're so darn expensive and heavy and likely for damage and long distance shipping. Andy says, thank you, Carey and Mara, for an interesting live video with content no one else does. I mean, I'd like to see other people. I hope this video inspires people like Jeff Geerling and Lawrence Systems and others who have made videos on the Nano and on the Jet and on the Comet acknowledge the Pico. You know, Naz Compares, where's his video? So here's hoping that they're inspired by this. And again, I can only imagine they got their units for free, which is why they did them to begin with. And if that's the case, then you're watching commercials. At the end of the day, you know, it's not necessarily true that just because they got it for free, it's making a commercial. We get units for free all the time. That doesn't affect my bias. However, if it means you're not going to evaluate other competitors in the space because they're not giving you the free unit, then what that means is you're only giving attention commercial attention, if you will, on YouTube with your content to your audience from the people who give you the items, and that if you go out and buy it, that you're not going to do it. And that's their choice if that's how they want to run their channel. But you as a viewer need to be aware of it, because if I don't point it out, you probably never thought of it before. The main reason that other channels may not be making content on the Pico is they're not getting one for free. And the main reason they did the Nano, or they did the Jet, or they did the Comet was they got one for free. 9 times out of 10. Maybe not universally true, but more true than not. And that's fine if that's how they want to do it. But if you're wondering why, I wonder why, that's probably the reason. If you're wondering why aren't they doing, you know, why are they reviewing all these products but they left a specific one out? Why would they do that? Either they didn't know the product existed, or those other products are playing a little quid pro quo. You do this for us, we'll do this for you. And the other guy said, no, I'm not doing that. And they said, well, then we're not even going to even mention your existence. Okay, I mean, they're allowed. They don't tell their audience that, though, not usually. So it's up to you to notice what you're not seeing. It looks like the poll numbers show 80% now on the Jet KVM and 20% on the Luckfox. So it's about 4 to 1. 4 out of 5 of you prefer the Jet KVM. And well, a little bit more now. It's dropped, so now 23% like the Pico. There's something about this Pico I really like. I'm a little bothered now that I discovered it doesn't have a reboot function. But here's hoping we're going to have an update soon. If that update we just put on came out November 7th, which is just 9 days ago, that's pretty recent. That suggests to me that they are in fact working on it, because I have no way to know. I'm a little saddened they don't give us the cables. I'm a little saddened the box doesn't have their name on it. I'm a little saddened we've got no documentation. And I'm a little saddened they have no working update button. But here's hoping they address pretty easy things. The update and the reboot, I'm good. I don't need them to have the cloud service. I like Jet KVM's cloud service, and that may be the reason in and of itself to go with the Jet KVM, is that cloud service is fantastic. But if their cloud service ever goes down, if they decide we don't want to do this anymore, they go out of business or they sell to another company, it ain't going to work anymore. Or if they decide they want to charge you for it, that's all possible. With these and the other KVMs, like the Nano and this, when you can set up tail scale, that's through GitHub. It's an independent thing, and it's not going to charge you. So these are things to keep in mind. And again, for my purposes here, the primary reason I'm using these is here on the local area network, where all of that's irrelevant. These will work forever this way. No one will be able to shut them down or decide they want some money. John Williams says, thanks for the live stream. Thank you, John. Thanks for hanging out. Scott saying thank you. Thanks for hanging out, Scott. Ilsoni says, well, the answer, Carey, is you're an honest tech. Well, I don't know that other people don't think they're honest. I don't think they're intentionally and willfully and maliciously omitting information. I can't speak for them, but I wouldn't assume that in their mind, they're anything but thinking they're honest. Some people will say lying is lying, but omitting information is not lying. I would argue omitting information is also lying, but when we're talking about honesty, I don't know many people that walk around going, I'm a bad guy and I'm out to cause harm to other people and manipulate people. I know there's some out there, but I would never assume that one's inward look at oneself is going to be one of evil or malicious. I think most people do believe they're honest, and they might say it's okay to lie so I don't hurt your feelings. You know what I mean? And My mother wasn't that way. My mother would hurt your feelings. If you needed a shower because you stunk, she'd tell you, you need to shower because you stink. She wouldn't put up with it. That's how I was raised. That's my version of honesty. That may not align with somebody else's. Someone else may think that's cruel. My mother would say it's cruel to not be that honest, to let somebody go around stinking when they're not aware, they're nose blind, and they're forcing everybody around them to have to deal with that stench. And they're not aware of it until somebody tells them, but everybody thinks it's too impolite. Oh, you got something in your teeth. If I had something in my teeth, I'd hope you'd tell me. No, I don't want to tell you, it's awkward. So just let me walk around looking like a fool. You're going to let me do that? Which one is more honest? And that's for each and every one of us to decide. I'm not here to tell you there others are dishonest, but I'm here to explain the way I see it, and it's my truth. If it aligns with your values, great. But I don't expect other people to be aligned to my values, so I give them the freedom to see their life and measure their life in their own unique way, the same way I expect the same respect in return for the same consideration. I'm going to do this my way, and if you don't like it, that's fine. And you're going to do it your way, and if I don't like it, that's fine. And if I point out what I don't like about it, I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong. I'm saying here's the reasons why I wouldn't do it your way. It's not a personal attack. I'm just explaining the way I see it is I would do it like this. It doesn't make me right. It doesn't make me better than you. It just shows another way of looking at something, ideally, so that you give another perspective and reevaluate. If you're still certain your way is better, keep at it. But for all I know, you never thought about this other way, this way that I see it. And whether you agree or disagree with me, it makes no difference in my life. It's not like I'm going to suddenly get rich. If I made your life easier because you followed some advice, or I made your life worse if you followed some advice, it's the same for me either way. So it's kind of a fascination of psychology to go, it's interesting to me that you do it that way because I would do it this way. And they might say, yeah, but your way takes longer. And I'll go, yeah, but your way sometimes has mistakes that you're going to have to come back and fix that could take hours and undo any time savings. And they might say, yeah, but that rarely happens. And I might say, well, in my experience, all it takes is once to defeat the whole purpose. I'd rather be more consistent and go slower each time so I never have to come back. And they might say, well, you're a moron because you're working way harder than you need to, double checking things that don't need to be double checked. And if it needs a double check, it's worth it to come back because you'll still save time at the end of the day. And I'll say, you know, that's just not been my experience. But if you don't mind coming back and doing work for free for a second time, that's fine. I'm not going to do that. It's just a discussion. It's not trying to convince anybody of anything other than I see it differently than you. Let me show you how I see it. Right? That's it. You see it differently. Let me see how you see it. That's fascinating. Nice talking to you. Nobody needed to convince anybody. Nobody's looking for approval. We're just together looking at the world around us and explaining what we see. And sometimes it might open up a third eye that you didn't realize you had. So, in any event, enough of that guru stuff. I rely on it a lot in this business, and I'm afraid most people don't. So I'm often dealing with people that act like robots, and I'm like, if you use computers every single day for years, you start becoming one. And you got to keep that human side alive, man. You can't get so lost in a machine that you've forgotten what it is to be a human and to apply those human attitudes to the machine, not the other way around. I feel like most people have it backwards. But I might be alone in that thought. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me for today. And Mara. I want to show you Mara's cookbook real quick. We just got the first copy of it in. This is the reworking of the original cookbook. She wasn't happy with the way it came out. So after publishing her second cookbook, she decided, I'm going to go back to the first cookbook and redo it. So that first cookbook is not available anymore. And she spent weeks on this. It wasn't just like reformatting. It was a lot more work. And this is a much thicker cookbook.
Yeah, this is 270 pages.
And that's how many recipes?
Oh, almost 200.
Almost 200 recipes.
At least, yeah.
Covering what kind of food?
So this cookbook covers everything from using vegetables to lots of vegan options. I did redevelop the recipes to use various kinds of flours, like the nut flours, like almond flour, or using unbelievable flour, which happens to be my favorite. But this recipe covers all kinds of dishes, meals, desserts, snacks, you name it, it's in there. And I did reformat it. I did redevelop all the recipes. There's really good pictures in there, primarily of the foods that I had cooked and took a picture of and made available. It actually turned out quite good, so pretty happy about that. Yeah. As you can see, I've given it a new title. I redeveloped the cover, the rear cover. The whole book has been reinvented.
And there's a hardback version, paperback version,
and Kindle,
and a Kindle version.
Yep. And they all look.
And everything is the way it's supposed to be.
Everything's the way it's supposed to be.
And that just came out. Like that's our very first copy.
Just released, yeah, just released.
So there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Looks pretty good. So again, if anyone's interested in all kinds of almost anything you can think of, from, like I had mentioned before, desserts and meals and salads, and I mean all kinds of stuff. This is like 30 years of me cooking and finding things that I can eat that are healthy, that are good for me, and that don't have an impact on me. As many of you probably already know, I've been a type 1 diabetic for over 50 years, and this is my way of trying to stay healthy. And as you can see, I still have all my parts. so far so good. These have done me well, and I hope you'll take advantage and check it out. And please, if you do make any of these recipes, reach out to me and let me know. I would love to hear. I'd love to hear your experiences. And if you need help with alternatives to whatever, like for example, Oilos not being available overseas,
or Canada,
or Canada, reach out to me for alternatives. I do want to also say that the unbelievable flour can be shipped internationally. So if you'd like to try that, you can purchase it from Unbelievable Buns. And if you're interested in the links, I can provide that as well. But that can be shipped internationally, and it's amazing. It's way, to me, way better than almond flour or any of the nut flours. But they are all in here. Lots of good recipes, covers pretty much every meal you could ever think of, and snacks. And please reach out to me if you need help, or if you want some ideas on how to do something a little different. Like I said, I've been doing this darn near 30 years or so.
And that's not 30 years of information. That's book 1. There's also book 2, and there's probably going to be even more books coming.
Yeah,
it's a lot of recipes over 30 years.
I'm constantly.
She's refining.
I get inspired by weird stuff. Whether or not we're walking through like a store or a market or something, and I see something, and I'm like, what is that, and what can I do with it? Or if we're watching TV, it could be a cooking show, it could be something just random like a cartoon. I'll get inspired, and I'll want to change it into something that I can eat and make it healthy. So that's what I do. I mean, you can't see, but the kitchen is a giant wreck because I'm constantly in there doing all kinds of crazy
That's
things.
why we're not making any kitchen videos.
Right.
All right. Well, not yet anyway.
Right.
Well, thank you, and good job, and get on to book 3 now. Chop, chop.
Yeah, I'm on it. All right, back to work, folks. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. And hope you enjoyed today's demonstration and instruction on setting up and using for the very first time knowing what to expect and how to use the Pico KVM versus the Jet KVM, how to order them, the amount of time it takes for shipping, the worry about tariffs. All that's been answered in today's video. If we've left anything out, do leave your question in the comments below. Or as a reminder, if you're running into any struggles, you can reach out to us directly at our email address, especially with one of these KVMs. We'll do our best to help you along. We've got a few viewers running the Nano KVM Pros, and I appreciate their feedback and some of the things that they're struggling with or how the updates are affecting them versus me, because we don't use them the same. So if you've already got one, or you're aware of one we've never tested, please tell me about it so we can go out and buy one. Because I'm all over these things. I just think they're so amazing and they're so useful. I wish I'd had this 2 years ago, 5 years ago. It's been wonderful. And to be able to send one of these to my client that's in another state so I can get in and update their BIOSes for Windows 11 saved me a long trip there and back, plus hotel expenses. All I did was order one off of Amazon and had it shipped directly to them for free. And I instructed them over the phone how to plug it in, and it couldn't have been any easier than that. I just sat in my chair. And as far as I'm concerned, for what these cost, they can just keep it, put it in a drawer somewhere. Maybe we'll need it again someday. And if not, I don't care. It's like extra. They're so inexpensive now to be able to get into a BIOS to turn on TPM or secure boot and things like that. Even when the client's in town, to have to wait until the end of the business day, or to wait for rush hour traffic to end, or I've got to sit in rush hour to drive 30 plus miles one way just to get into a BIOS, you can understand these pay for themselves after one use in a real life business scenario. And even if you're a tinkerer and you enjoy sort of just playing with them, it's very affordable. Again, you're just going to buy it once. There's no subscription to anything. And I cannot emphasize that enough. On the other hand, if all you really do need is just a Windows remote access software, you're looking for something free, I'd say use RustDesk. RustDesk. It's free and it works great, but it's not this. I can't get into a BIOS and I can't do the things I'm doing from upstairs with a RustDesk. And this is way faster response time. So there's many different tools to accomplish different goals, and make sure you're picking the right tool to meet whatever expectation is you have for the goal you're trying to meet. I'm not suggesting these are for everybody. I'm giving you the information so you understand what makes them different, especially from Windows-based remote software compared to a hardware-based solution. What are the pros? What are the cons? And you might see the con is this costs money and RustDesk is free. But these two things RustDesk can't do. And these pretty much do everything RustDesk can do, plus. So you get what you pay for. And the right tool is always going to be the right tool. That's going to wrap it up. Again, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We appreciate having you here. And thank you to Buster and Mark Gaines for their Amazon gift cards. Thank you for your membership renewals. And Mara has added links to everything in our video description for both the KVMs, the cables, the memory cards, and the cookbooks. And I want to say thank you to AJ M. Silverado for becoming a new member here, and welcome. Thank you to Paul O'Brien for renewing membership. Thank you to Rick Lakes for your $10 super chat earlier. Hope you're doing well, Rick. And thank you to Find Me in Hawaii with a $2 super chat. All right, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We're back live for our members only Monday video. That's every Monday at 1 p.m. Phoenix time. Because of the recent daylight saving time change, if you rolled your clock back an hour, we didn't. So when I tell you we're starting at 1, but you rolled your clock back an hour, it's going to be noon. Or if we were starting at what used to be 4 p.m. on the East Coast, but you rolled your clock back an hour, it's going to be 3 o'clock instead of 4. Still 1 o'clock for me. Phoenix does not change our time. So for half of the year, Arizona, California, the West Coast, we're on the same time. And then the East Coast is 3 hours the other way. But when both sides roll their clocks back an hour, and Arizona doesn't, we're now an hour ahead of California and only 2 hours behind the East Coast. So adjust your time accordingly. It's always 1 o'clock Phoenix time. And if you're a member, we do the exact same live videos, but they're more informal, they're more personal, and it's sort of a behind the scenes, sort of the true supporters of the channel. It's for us to have our content in our Hangout, and you get some more behind the scenes, what's coming up, and even some unique specialized content from diagnostics and repairs and builds that are never ever made public in order to encourage and reward people for being supporters. This is the reason. It's not to punish the free viewers at all, but it's to encourage people to help support us, to keep making the content that I have to assume you enjoy. And without our members, we wouldn't be able to do it. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll look forward to seeing the members tomorrow, Monday, 1 o'clock Phoenix time. That's 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. I hope you'll join me then. Until next time, bye for now.